Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the program. One more time before I get started, you know how I'm going to start the program. I'm going to ask all of those that are watching right now to immediately go share this program on your page. Please go ahead and share. That is how we get the Facebook algorithm immediately to start letting people know that we are on air, that we are on Facebook. For those people who are listening on Blog Talk Radio, the network, please go ahead and remember to tell folks on your walls, tell folks in your tweets, tell folks all around that Politics Done Right is active, and we're going to have a hell of a show for you today. We have a show that is going to really speak to what's going on with conservative republicanism right now, but even more so than that, we're going to talk about why it has worked based on a article written by the one and only Paul Krugman. We are going to deconstruct that article and use that sort of as a basis to move this particular discussion forward. I hope to hear from you guys. You know, this is a call-in show. Telephone number 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I'd love to hear from you guys. Give us a call. We are very, very nice here, and you get to be able to say whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do. Again, folks, go ahead and share this program on your wall right now before you start, even if you're going to only listen for 1, for 2, for 5, for 10, for 15 minutes, or however you're able to stay. I'd like you to stay for the whole program because we have a real good program. After we get through the little beginnings and after we get through with the little bit of news, we have a show for you that is going to be enlightening, and I hope that you can bring some more light to it, not only by what you place out there on the Facebook page, but also what you call in and tell us. So again, this is your show. Remember, this is Progressive Radio. We also ask you, if you are listening right now, to consider giving us a coffee or so a month as a subscriber to Politics Done Right, one of the shows that ensures that liberal, progressive politicians that don't normally get a hearing will actually be here on the show. We've had the likes of Nina Turner. We've had the likes of Robert Reich. We've had the likes of journalist Crystal Ball. We've had a whole lot of people who've been guests on this show, and we will continue to have them all. We've had our liberal bastion, Thom Hartman, on the show. So remember, go ahead and keep shows like this on air. Visit patreon.com/politics done right. Again, that is patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right, and help us keep these programs on air. Folks, we have a program installed for you, or in that we are going to give to you today. That's a pretty darn interesting program. The name of the program today is going to be "Only When We Deconstruct the Conservative Republican Con Will We End It." One of the reasons it's impossible to end the Republican conservative con right now is that our fellow Americans that consider themselves conservatives, good people that believe in the conservative mantra. Now, I mean, look, you can believe in conservatism, you can believe in liberalism, you can believe in all these other isms. The thing about it is, how do you, if you believe in these things, can you really live through the mantra? Can you really live through the ethos? Can you live through what they really stand for? My contention is, as a left-winger, a progressive, a liberal, most people, I think, cannot live through the conservative mantra, because when you look at it in its purest form, it is not designed for the average human being. That said, those people that honestly believe in that concept, we have to give them latitude. If you're a conservative listening to my show, you know it, and you've listened to my show before, you know you can come on my show, you can call into my show, whether it's here on the Politics Done Right Daily, or it is on the Politics Done Right when we do it at KPFT, the Pacifica Network station, on KPFT 90.1 FM. you know that you have a voice. Everybody on this show, everybody who watches this show, everybody who calls into this show, everybody who has the ability to see this show, this is your show. You have the ability to put your 2 cents in. You have the ability to be heard. And let me tell you, we have a large distribution. We have a very, very large distribution. So whatever words you put on this show, you get a chance to have it represented all over the place. So if you want to agree with me or disagree with me or do whatever you want, your voice will definitely be heard throughout the spheres. And I'm not only talking about on the internet, but elsewhere. So go ahead and give us a call when we're in the period of receiving calls at the number 646-716-5812. Title of the show today is Only When We Deconstruct the Conservative Republican Con Will We End It. Subtitle of the show is We Expose the Conservative Republican Con for All to Understand. And that is what's important, right? We have a whole lot of friends. We have a whole lot of families. They don't necessarily think like us. And one of the reasons they don't necessarily think like us is that they don't quite get the understanding that we have. And many times it is our fault because of the nature in which we approach folks sometimes is not the best. Welcome aboard, Mike Cisak. Welcome aboard, Michael Rudin. Welcome aboard, Kimberly P. Cook. And for those that I missed because they scrolled down, I'll get to you to welcome you later on. And welcome to all those on Blog Talk Radio as well. Anyway, conservative Republicans have been winning elections statewide and nationally almost unfettered since the election of Ronald Reagan. It started with the biggest con of them all. Reagan promised to cut taxes, balloon the defense budget, cut the deficit, and maintain the social safety net. It was a mathematical impossibility, folks. It has always been a mathematical impossibility to do that. So much so that it was a mathematical impossibility that this then Republican primary challenger, George H.W. Bush, that is brother George W. Bush's daddy when he ran against Reagan, called it voodoo-economics. I wrote an entire book that explained voodoo-economics, an entire book that explained voodoo-economics, Obamacare, and all these other issues in layman's term, in a form that everybody can understand, called, as I see it, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. That was a book that I wrote out of frustration in 2010 when all the crazy things were happening and we had all the misinformation going on, and I always thought the news media, the mainstream news media, was doing a poor job of illustrating what the progressive nature of the country then was about to bring to America. And because the Republican conservative movement was so powerful in the way of messaging, they pretty much screwed Obama's message from the inception of Obamacare, from the inception of the stimulus, from the inception of all these things. And it was frustrating for one person, myself, and I imagine millions of others who knew what was going on, but they simply didn't have the voice. They didn't have the ability to get that voice out. So different people reacted in different manners. In my case, my choice was to write a book. So I wrote the book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. And that book still holds true right now with all these other issues that have yet to change. I mean, we've had 8 years of Obama, 8 years of Clinton, and the basic method, the basic economic policies, the basic economics in this country is still supply side economics. It is still trickle down economics. It is still voodoo economics. That's why the Republicans could have just passed a $1.3 trillion budget, cut taxes, and at the same time lie to people and say, oh, it's going to be better for you. I recall Benson, who was a Senate from back in the Ye days, a senator from Texas, who when asked, hey, how comes the Reagan economy after that big dip is doing so well? He said, and I never forgot that, he said, if I give you a blank check and tell you can write however much money you want to write, I can also give you the semblance of prosperity. And under Reagan, in as much as prosperity wasn't as good as it was under Clinton, which himself, Clinton didn't get rid of supply side economics, all of it was all a mirage. And we have a great economist. They love to call him a Marxist economist. And the reason they call him a Marxist economist is because the truth hurts when he speaks it. Richard Wolff. Look up economist Richard Wolff. and he'll explain to you in detail how all the prosperity of the 90s, all the prosperity of the late 80s was built on nothing more than personal credit that eventually came due, which was the genesis of several of the crises that we've had thus forward or going forward. So it's all important for us to understand these things. But most importantly today, what we want to understand is the big conservative Republican con. Because if we can understand that in 2018 in November, people would not be just voting against something, but they'll be voting against something they know is bad for them, and they will be forcing those that they vote for to support something that is good for them. So what I'm going to talk about today is what we need to do going forward, what we need to do, first of all, to get these folks out. And after we get these folks out, what we have to demand from folks when they get in. And you don't have to be a left-wing liberal like me to believe in these same concepts that I'm telling you here, because you know what? These are the concepts that help us all. These are the concepts that are going to ensure that your kid can go to college. These are the concepts that are going to do all these things. Continuing at the point, anyway, the con man in Reagan made anyone who questioned his magic policies seem like fools. That was the whole idea behind Reaganomics, right? And that's what they do today, right? You go ahead and talk about you want to do something positive for the economy. The Republican machine, the conservative machine. I'm not talking about our everyday American conservative or everyday American Republican. They're good people. I'm talking about the leadership who knows better. The average thing that they did, anytime you have a good concept that come out, they find a way to destroy it in the eyes of everybody else by making it look silly, like making it look like you're bleeding heart liberal looking for something for free. Which the only people that are getting something for free are the plutocrats in this country. Everybody else are working very hard. Anyhow, the con man in Reagan made anyone who questioned his magic policies seem like fools. The actor successfully made a seasoned politician look like a clown. At that point, it was evident that conning and acting was now an important part of conservative Republican orthodoxy. It was no longer about truth. It was no longer about science. It was no longer about facts. It was about just getting someone who could act the part and lie and deceive convincingly. That is what conservative republicanism have become. Conservative republicanism has become the method in which we can lie to people, fool to people, deceive people, and in the process have them vote against their own interests. So that's what we're going to discuss using Paul Krugman's article on the 26th as a template. But before, let's get to a little bit of news. Folks, stay with me. If you're just coming on to the show, please do remember to go ahead and share this show on your Facebook page right away, because that is how Facebook know that you want to use it, and will permeate it through the different feeds of friends, etc., etc., etc. We need you to do that. So please go ahead and let's go ahead and get these shows shared. So share. And also do remember that this is a progressive show that needs your support, and you can help us by supporting us at patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right. We need you to stay on air. We need you to keep this stuff going. Anyhow, going forward from the news feed, the AP, and this one is a story to my heart. Everybody who watches me all the time on the show or listen to me on KPFT or whatever know that yo soy panameño, soy originalmente de Panamá. I'm from Panama, and that's where I'm originally from. And guess what? This news from the AP was kind of fun to listen to, and it said, President Donald Trump's family hotel business has lost a bid to regain control of the luxury hotel in Panama that ousted his brand, according to a new emergency arbitration ruling. The arbitrator ruled Tuesday that Trump's company should not have been evicted while a broader arbitration dispute was going on between the hotel owners and Trump. But with Trump outmaneuvered in Panama and the hotel in the owner's hands, the arbitrator declined to reinstate the Trump team. He also, this is the kicker, he also barred all parties from starting new legal fights over the matter. The facts on the ground now mitigate against forcibly undoing the steps that have been taken. Arbitrator Joel Richler wrote, he said his decision might be different if Trump had sought an emergency arbitration decision before the hotel owners asked for help from Panamanian courts. Wow, it's different in Panama than it is here. You know, you don't get to go around in circles and circles and circles. They make a decision, kaboom, it's over. Trump lost. New York Times, a lawyer for President Trump broached the idea of Mr. Trump pardoning two of his former top advisors, Michael T. Flynn and Paul Manafort, with their lawyers last year, according to 3 people with knowledge of the discussion. The discussion came as a special counsel was building cases against both men, and they raised questions about whether the lawyer, John Dowd, who resigned last week, was offering pardons to influence their decision about whether to plead guilty and cooperate in the investigation. The talks suggest that Senor Trump lawyers were concerned about Mr. Flynn and Mr. Manafort might reveal were they to cut a deal with a special counsel, Robert Mueller. So therefore, as you can see, the guy was actually trying to cut a deal. He's running scared. And last little piece of news, and this one is dear to my heart because it's with our brotherhood out there in Mexico. Nuestros hermanos mexicanos van a elegir un izquierdista. Our folks in Mexico are about to elect a left-wing liberal. Here it goes. Mexico's presidential election are 3 months away, and Andrés Manuel López Obrador of the Morena party has a double-digit lead in the polls in a 3-way race with no runoff. This is what a potential landslide looks like. If he wins on July 1, AMLO would be the first leftist to become the country's president since 1934, when Lázaro Cárdenas, a revered hero of the Mexican Revolution and Mexico's own FDR figure, was elected. Needless to say, a left turn would be a big change for Mexico, where seven decades of rule by authoritarian PRI were followed by 18 years of the PRI and the center-right PAN alternating in power. In the United States, the Mexican presidential election has mostly been ignored, swamped by coverage of Trump. School, that's how we are. We can't chew and talk and chew gum at the same time. The Mexican presidential election has been mostly ignored, swamped by coverage of Trump, school shootings, and other domestic concerns. Where AMLO's lead has received attention, it has been treated with a mixture of incredulity and fear. The financial sector, in particular, is worried that an AMLO government will cancel oil contracts negotiated by Enrique Peña Nieto administration, or even pull out of NAFTA. Among more general observers in the United States, little is known about AMLO beyond the caricature of him painted by his opponents at home. He is a messianic populist who wants to take Mexico back to a time of autocratic politics and economics mismanagement. Of course, that's what they're going to say. But what is great about this, right, is I am hoping the same thing occurs in the United States. I'm hoping that in Mexico we go ahead and we get that leftist elected, and in the United States in November we take sure and we bring in a whole ton of progressives who are finally going to say, stop the lies. The reality is we've been pilfering you. I don't care if you are a conservative or not. You bleed red. You have the same problems the progressives have. And guess what? We love you too. We really do. We only want what's good for you, because the progressive mantra is to ensure that everybody does well, not just the wealthy, not just Republicans, not just conservatives. I am in this for every single American citizen in this country. That is what it's about. If everybody's happy, because my contention is this, right? I really don't like parties, but I mean, we have to work with what we have. And the idea here, my friends, is as follows. If we go ahead, if we ensure that everybody is doing fine, guess who people are going to vote for? People are going to vote for people who give policies that are going to do the necessary things. But anyhow, that is the little bit of news, and you know what time it is. Tú sabes qué hora es ahora, así que vamos a comenzar con el...
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, the weekly blog post. The title of the weekly blog post is Paul Krugman Exposed the Con in the Republican Conservative. And I wonder if I should have put the Conservative Republican. And I see something about Marxist from Mike Cisak. Mike, I hope you call in, because I want to talk about Lula. I want to talk about Miss Dilma as well. So you can bring it on, my friend. I would love to have that conversation with you. Anyhow, here we go. Republican conservative built their policies almost entirely on lies. Anybody want to dispute that? Please call in. And you know what? We'll have a civil conversation. I promise that. We will have a very, very civil conversation, but I need you to call and tell me what you think about this. Republican conservative built their policies almost entirely on lies. Over time, the failed results for the middle class required over-expanding lies by the entire Republican establishment to lay blame for their failures elsewhere. Again, that is important because they start with a message. We always knew the message was a lie, or these messages were lies. After we knew these messages were lies and we knew the outcomes, we knew what the outcomes were going to be of these messages, they had, when those outcomes were realized, they had to come out with excuses, and those excuses themselves had to be lies. That level of lying, dishonesty attracts people who are comfortable doing them ad nauseum, cons. So the people who can do things, the people who can lie at that level, they must be cons. They are con people because you cannot lie day in and day out when the evidence is staring in your face and not be a con person. Okay, and Donald Trump fit the bill. And the Republican conservative base brought him in. Okay. When one builds a house on a foundation of lies and deception, it either fails or democracy ends. And Paul Krugman has an ending part that really addresses that. Exposing the conservative con is essential. New York Times journalist Paul Krugman wrote a very enlightening article titled, "Putting the Ex-Con Conservatism That is Worth Dissecting." Krugman begins his article pointing out that an ex-con, Massey Energy's former CEO Don Blankenship, is likely to be the Republican Senate candidate from West Virginia. He put the miners who in his mind in danger as he willfully violated mine safety standards. 4 Republicans: Representative Greg Gianforte from Montana, Republican Dan Donovan from New York, and of course the one and only El Señor Joe Arpaio, all have criminal convictions, and they just may be the ones representing the Republican side of the election in November 2018. Krugman points out that while there are crooked Democrats, legal troubles are usually career-ending, unlike for Republicans. That is, I always found that amazing. Anthony Weiner, he didn't have illicit sex with anybody. He was an exposer. Right? And he just, his career was over, and I guess he did this with a minor and is going to end up now in jail, which is bad. I'm not trying to diminish that at all. But what I'm trying to say is this guy had no sexual exposure to anybody or whatever, but he went down, and Democrats ensured that he went down. Folks, if you're just joining the show, please go ahead and share this show on your page because it is essential for Facebook to keep moving this baby up the line, for you to show that there is interest on this show. Krugman then writes some perspective, and this is what he says in his article. What's going on here? I don't think it is an accident that the modern GOP contains so many crooks, and that these crooks seem to thrive in intra-party politics intra-party politics. On the contrary, the success of people like Blankenship or Trump was an inevitable consequence of the political strategy Republicans have followed for decades. For the simple truth is that ever since Reagan, Republicans have basically played a con game on American voters. That is what you have to let your friends, your Republican conservative friends, know. It has been a con game since Reagan, since the actor came into the fold. This was a con game. And if you remember when I started the piece, and I want to go back to that because there are people coming and going, what I said is, remember how this started. It didn't start with Reagan, okay? But Reagan was a perfecter and the one who got it done. He's the bastion of the new conservatism, and this is how he did it. He said, and I mentioned this earlier in the piece, and this is the very most important thing, that how do you say? and I want to find the piece where I actually I said that piece, not in the blog of the week. I said it before, and what it was that he said is the following, and this is so important for those people, because remember, Reagan was a long time ago, and a lot of people don't know who he is. Even our millennials are like, Reagan, who the hell is that? Well, anyhow, this is the guy who said, right? This is the lie that he said. It started with the biggest con of them all. Reagan promised to cut taxes, balloon the defense budget, cut the deficit, and maintain the social safety net. It was a mathematical impossibility that his then Republican primary challenger George H.W. Bush called voodoo-economics. The con man in Reagan made anyone who questioned his magic policies seem like fools. The actor successfully made a seasoned politician look like a fool. Now, that is in effect what Krugman is pointing out in that first paragraph that I read. Now, so what exactly is the con that conservative Republicans are selling? Krugman described it and explains how they get away with it. He explains in detail how they get away with it. Here it is. Their sustained invariant agenda has been upward redistribution of income, cutting taxes on the rich while weakening the social safety net. This agenda is unpopular. This is an important thing. This is a very important point. Folks, for those who are just coming in, please share the program, but this is a very important point. Only a small minority of Americans want to see tax cuts for the wealthy, and an even smaller minority wants cuts to major social programs. Yet, Republicans have won elections partly by denying the reality of their policy agenda. In other words, they lie. They lie. In other words, they don't tell you the damage that their agenda is inflicting on the average American citizen. They just cut $1.3 trillion and they had a big fanfare about it. And everybody believed they were going to benefit from it. And then some people started to see $100 a month more in their paychecks. They got to see a couple $100 more a month in their paycheck. Actually, it's less than that. But whoa, they were happy. They were happy they see extra money. What they didn't tell you is for that tax cut, which mostly went to wealthy people, your premiums in October for health care, because a lot of the subsidies are now gone to give you back that money that you thought you had, that is going to be gone. So now all these health care rates are going to zoom up. All these fees are for infrastructure and all these kinds of things that normally the government would help subsidize, gone up. All these programs that you used to get for free, not for free, but you were paying taxes for it, but because you get a tax cut that went mostly to wealthy people, because most of this tax cut went to these rich people, you are now responsible for paying a whole lot more. So when you add up that you may get $30 more a week in your paycheck, and you say, oh, I can take the family out for a cheap fast food dinner that I couldn't before. Now that you can do that, when your healthcare bill comes in October, and when other bills from different entities come due throughout the year, you're going to see all these increases in fees and prices and everything, but you got a tax cut that he told you got. It was a con. And that is what you have to explain to the folks that don't realize it now, that you know, that are your friends, that are conservatives, that are Republican, that are thinking, oh, look at my check. I actually got a few more dollars and now I can buy something else. You have to let these people know that it was a con, and not only let them know that it was a con, explain to them why. Explain to them how, because that's a lot of times that things happen. Somebody tune into the show and just hear me saying, oh, the tax cut is a scam. And then if they tune off, and sometimes I repeat real quickly because people's attention spans are short, and if you say something that they don't immediately agree with, they go somewhere else. But if you say something they don't agree with and you qualify thereafter, you get their attention and say, oh, let me continue to listen to that. That's one of the reasons I ask all you folks who are listening to these shows, share, because that's how we educate. So anyhow, yet Republicans won elections partly by denying the reality of their policy agenda, but mainly by posing as defenders of traditional social values above all. That greatest of American traditions, racism. Now, that's what Krugman says. I'm not done with what he says, but it's important for you to kind of figure this out, right? These guys, when Trump was running, he told you, He told all of you who voted for him that he wasn't cutting your Social Security. He wasn't cutting your Medicare. He wasn't cutting your health care. And you know what? He has cut every single one of those things, right? But they don't tell you that, and the news media don't come out and explain to you in detail that they've done that. That's what we are here for. That's what Politics Done Right is here for. That's why I usually ask you, make sure you keep us in here. But that's what we're here for. To explain to folks exactly what is being done by these people. They're doing you no favors. They are really continuously extracting. And I'll go into extraction a little bit further if I have the time, based on the amount of conversation that occurs on the Facebook page, or based on anybody who calls in. Okay, continuing. Krugman then explains why then to support a policy that is in fact requires con men and con women to drive its continued deviant ascent. He writes the following. And this sustained resilience on the big con has over time exerted a strong selection effect both on the party's leadership and on its base. GOP politicians tend disproportionately to be con men, and in some areas, or in some cases, con women. Because playing the party's political games require both a willingness to and a talent for saying one thing while doing another, and the party's base consists disproportionately of the easily conned, those who are easily fooled by claims that those people are the problem and don't notice how much the true Republican agenda hurts them. The point is that Trumpism was more or less fated to happen. In other words, it's not an accident. Trumpism is not an accident. It is just the next step. It was just the next progression. That's what Trumpism is. It had to happen. Trumpism had to happen. Those who are easily fooled. Trumpism was more or less fated to happen. Trump's crude racism and blatant dishonesty are only exaggerated versions of what his party has been selling for decades. I mean, remember where Reagan started in his primary, or rather where he started his campaign. I don't remember the name of the town, but it was a town that always talked about states' rights and, among other things, during the civil rights. Anyhow, Krugman then explains the three implications that the conservative Republican con has had on America and what it means going forward. He explains what it means going forward. First, there will be no redemption from within. Principled, ethical politicians won't reclaim the party from the likes of Trump because they are not what the base wants. The modern GOP is no country for honest men. Con artists will continue to rule until or unless the party loses big, repeatedly, and spends years in the political wilderness. And that is so true. Second, however, the party is indeed vulnerable because there's always the risk that voters will catch on to its con. Republicans' attacks on health care, not lurid scandals, seem to have been the biggest factor behind Democratic victories in special elections. And in November, this backlash could give Democrats not just one or both houses of Congress, but also control of many state governments. But here's the deal. You heard what Krugman said, and he's right. Let's forget about the Russia scandal. Let's forget about Stormy Daniels. That'll take care of itself, I promise you. If there's something there, that will take care of itself. Let's concentrate on the things that matter to Americans right now. It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, or whatever. There are a lot of things that are hurting you right now. And those are the things that we need to get to. Those are the things we need to talk about. Those are the things progressives who want to win need to talk about. Just talking about Stormy Daniels or talking about Russia is going to do very little. For those people who are doing just fine, for those people who their personal economy is in great shape, it's going to be fine. You find it easy. Yesterday I called the people on TV, the journalists, elitists, because while they have the time to concentrate on how bad this Stormy Davis thing is or how bad this Russia thing is, a lot of people are trying to eat. A lot of people are thinking, where is their next dollar coming from, and what is thinking about Stormy Davis or Stormy Daniels and Russia going to do to help them? Nothing. But if you come out there and say, look, you elect me in November. And what we're going to do for you, forget about that. Russia, the special prosecutor will take care of that, and we'll make sure that the special prosecutor will be there when we take power in November. But what we're going to do for you is we're going to give you the support that you need to continue your life. We're going to give you the health care support that you need. We're going to give you the Social Security stipends that you need. We're going to ensure that the pilfer that occurred from the wealthy no longer occurs. We're going to make folks pay their fair share to support this country, because after all, it is this country who gave them the wherewithal to be where they are. It's not their intellect or their individualism that allowed them to accomplish what they did. You have to talk to people in a manner that they can see it is not wishful thinking, but that you understand the concepts under which this country currently runs and the concepts under which this country should run. And that's what you got to get to them. But, what if it doesn't? Meaning, what if somehow progressives don't do what we are suggesting that they do to ensure that they win in landslides, not only federally, but throughout the states? What happens then? But what if it doesn't? Here's the third implication, which should scare you. And this is Paul Krugman talking here. The nature of the modern GOP's game gives it a bias against democracy. A bias against democracy. The way they have redistricted, the gerrymandering that they've done in the states they control, have ensured that a minority of the population are the ones who control the country. Just like President Trump was elected with a minority of the population because of that mistake in the Constitution. So the non-mistake of gerrymandering is allowing different states to be run by other than those who were elected to do so. The nature of the modern GOP's game gives it a bias against democracy. After all, one way to protect yourself against voters who figure out what you're up to is to stop them from voting. Vote suppression and extreme gerrymandering are already key parts of Republican strategy, but what we've seen so far may just be the beginning. So says Paul Krugman. Krugman makes it clear that the shenanigans that Republican operatives are playing with the electoral process are no accident. As the con wears thin, the only options that Republicans have are to go anti-democratic. And you know what? Only you can solve the anti-democratic problem by educating yourself and convincing your friends, your families, and otherwise that it is imperative, first of all, that they engage, number one, and number two, that they vote, and number three, that they ensure that we are out there helping them. Folks, this is a call-in show. Telephone number 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I'm taking calls now. I'd love to hear from you. You know, we can take up to 50 calls at the same time. So, you can give us a call and we'll be, you won't be on hold too long because, again, if a lot of you call in, we'll give you a chance to say your piece, but we'd love to hear from you. That number is 646-716-5812, 646-716. And the remainder of that is what again? The remainder of that is 5812. And what I'm going to do right now is try to get to my good folks on Facebook, but I have to bring it up at first. So anyhow, let's get you coming in here. You want to talk? Let's see. Bruce says the census question might be the best example. Yes, it is. I mean, think about what they're doing with that census question. They want to ask if you're a citizen. Now, for people who are not versed in knowing that, well, it doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not. They want you to answer the census, and whether if you have a green card, you have a right to be here, and you have a right to be counted as well. And they are going to go under the assumption that you don't know those things, and if you don't know those things, you won't act on those things accordingly. And that's how it starts. Okay, again, that number, folks, 646-716-5812. Give us a call now, 646-716. All right, 646-716-5812. Let's go to the boards. Let's see, Bruce, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Let's see what else we have here. The census question might be the best example. Absolutely so. Let's see. Bruce, oh, come on, guys. Don't scroll on me like this. I can't read that fast. Okay, when this stuff stabilizes, I'll be able to answer the questions or talk about what's out here. Okay, let's see. Clinton had the same question in the census. Yeah, but they changed it when they realized what CSAC. They knew exactly what the problem was with doing that. So that is I don't think that's a good case to make when you say, oh, well, that question was there when Clinton was there. I don't think that's a valid question. Okay, Mark Root and Bruce Blord agreed. Republicans have to cheat to win. Adding citizenship questions will reduce Latino participation. Yes, and it'll reduce Latino participation because, look, let me tell you, I went to the DNV yesterday to get my license renewed, and it was amazing because I was helping out a young kid who was born in the United States but raised in Mexico because his father goes back and forth. And the fear in his grandmother who just had a green card and him filling out the stuff as a citizen was amazing. I mean, she was concerned about whether he's doing the right thing and wanted to make sure he didn't make not one mistake filling out the paperwork. I helped them fill out the paperwork, which was in English. They didn't pick up the Spanish copy. I don't know why, but I helped them fill it out in the English stuff in Spanish by, translating for them. But it's amazing the fear that is currently occurring in the system. Okay, can you post the phone number again? The phone number is 646-716-5812, and it's right there on the screen. 646-716-5812. So if you can see the feed, you can see the screen, and you can see the number. Okay, we will, let's see. We still haven't recovered from conservative economics since Reagan. That is very true, Michael Rudden, but let me explain something to you. We haven't recovered from Reaganomics. We haven't recovered from supply-side economics. We haven't recovered from any of that because of the Democratic Party establishment collusion with the Republican Party. Okay? Let's not make any bones about this. We had, first of all, under Clinton, it could have been done through reconciliation in a lot of ways. It was not. In fact, we must remember, and this is away from trickle down, but this has more to do with finance. It was Clinton who signed the repeal of Glass-Steagall, okay, which one could say was part of the genesis of the 2008 meltdown, because we allowed these guys to play with everybody's money, with derivatives and credit default swaps and all these other pieces. So, a lot of times in Democratic orthodoxy, Clinton is revered, meaning Bill Clinton. I was never, I respect the man and I like the guy, but I was never a fan in believing that Clinton was the great progressive out there doing anything. He was actually the founder of, I think, the DLC, right? The Democratic Leadership Council, which was nothing more than Republican light policies, right? So he supported, while he increased taxes, I could say the same about George Bush number one. I think George Bush number one and Clinton Clinton one, meaning Bill Clinton, shared a whole lot in common and pretty much governed pretty darn close to each other. So, I think that is the reality. And we can then say after that, when Bush came into power, Bush went full Reagan again. In fact, pretty darn deeper than Reagan with the tax cuts that with some of the policies that he put into place. And then came Obama, and Obama had a veto-proof Congress for a few months. If Democrats really wanted then to make a change from supply-side economics to a more benign form of capitalism, something that I would have supported, a more benign form of capitalism, meaning a very, 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 very well-regulated capitalism with a large social construct, pretty darn close to what we have in places like Denmark, etc., which is a distinct possibility where people are pretty happy, where would have made Americans very happy. Just a few less billionaires would have been created. I could have supported that. Obama could have done that. And when I say Obama could have done that, I'm not putting the onus on Obama, because what it really meant is Obama had to have the support of all those Democrats that were a veto-proof majority Democrats, and the reality is he did not. So we must accept the reality that the Democratic Party establishment is very much in cahoots with the Republican establishment party to some extent. I'm not saying they're the same. Look, I'm a Democrat and I'm an officer to some extent in the Democratic Party, but you must call a spade a spade. And the reality is the Democratic Party has failed progressives. Democratic Party has failed many people because of who runs the Democratic Party and who they owe their alliances to. One of the reasons we want support for the independent media, one of the reasons we want support for independents out there, one of the reasons we want to say, get out there and support the most progressive candidate you know have your values that can win, is because until that happens, until progressives get into the innards of that Democratic Party, we will still continue to have what we call the establishment party light. Okay, so we don't sit down there and well, I'm going to answer that question because I think I see it in the rolls. But let me continue with what I see here. Let's see. Bruce Pilar, or rather, Rene Pepper, still remember that Teflon smile. Oh, yes, I remember that. Reagan came up with the brilliant idea to tax Social Security. Yes, he did. Republican sustained invariant agenda has been upward redistribution of income, cutting taxes for the rich while weakening the social safety net. This agenda is, that is what exactly what Krugman said. Oh, I see that you were quoting Krugman. That we need the best liberal candidates possibly to make the choice an easy one. Yes, we do. Okay, Mike Cisak. Brazilian people revolting against Marxist leaders, throwing the working party out of power after corrupt leaders were convicted. I think you must be reading the wrong newspapers, because one of the most revered politicians in Brazil was Lula. And Lula was, all the trumped-up charges that the plutocracy in Brazil, which is one of the richest Latin American countries on the planet, actually one of the most, it's like the United States of South America. Brazil, when run under Lula, brought a whole lot of people out of poverty. The problem, again, is the same thing that occurs anytime a left-wing government takes over. The plutocracy gets mad because they are unable to extract all from everybody. They're unable to take away from people, because the left-wingers say, we are in support of people. We are going to support policies that are people-centric. Why have a civilization if you extract from some and have others with an unfair advantage? Policies like there's oil that you extract out of the ground that was placed there by the supreme being or however the land was created, and somehow only a few are able to get the spoils from that oil. That oil belongs to all of us all. The mining that occurs in America, all that stuff belongs to everybody. Yes, the people who mine it or create the technology to mine it, assuming it's not the government, yeah, they should get their money back plus some sort of a return. But after that has occurred, that should all revert back to the people. After all, it's not these companies or these shareholders who are the ones who put those things there. We have to develop a new way of thinking. We have to start thinking differently. Unless we start thinking differently, we have adapted the policies of these guys who created this economy, and in that regards, somehow been indoctrinated into believing we are so much less, and somehow these others are so much more. It's not the case, my friends. So are economically destroyed even more than So are economically destroyed, this is Bruce, so are economically destroyed even more than environmentally? I think my thing, Bruce, is that is a hand in hand, right? If you destroy the environment, you destroy the economy. If you destroy the economy, a lot of time, if you do something that destroys the economy, ultimately the environment will suffer, because, again, people won't really care about the environment. So it's one of those things that are not mutually exclusive, in my opinion, that is. Let's see. Coming back, folks, you can give us a call, 646-716-5812. Let's see. Mike Cisak, I read that. Let's see. Redden, Republican sustained invariant. I got that. He went to bed with a monkey and still got it. Let's see. And Trump cut corporate taxes again and got away with it. Yes, he did. And not only did he cut corporate taxes, he gave these guys an ability to bring their money in almost very tax reduced, with the idea that these guys were going to use the tax benefits that they got from these monies that they brought back from overseas invest it right back into the business. Did that occur? Hell no. We knew it wasn't going to occur. They gave it back as stock buybacks. I wrote a complete blog on that where it points out that all the spoils, most of the spoils, went right back to the shareholders by stock buybacks, etc. So, folks, again, remember what Krugman was talking about, the great con game. They have to con you to get these policies passed, and you were conned for those who believed it. Never bury the lead when you talk to someone who disagrees with you. You typically have 10 seconds, effectively one sentence, in which to make your point before they stop listening to you and start rationalizing their counter arguments. That is very true. And that's why I told you a lot of times when I'm speaking, I try to get back again to the point at hand. So important. And, you know, we have to remember that. And it's not easy to remember that, Mr. Rudnin. Let's see. Rene Perpetua. And Trump outsources his products from, yeah. People don't realize that Trump outsources his products and then he talks about Make America Great. And Bruce, let's concentrate on finding candidates. Yes, we know that. So we concentrate on candidates that know how to fix this mess and have past records to make us think they can do it. Absolutely, Swan. That's where we come in. And that's where you come in, Bruce and everybody else. You find candidates, you bring them to the fold, and you tell them to come on because, you know, a lot of these candidates aren't yet known. I hope Tulsi Gabbard's paper bailout initiative gets passed. For sure, Michael. Let's see. Speaking of which, we just had some more banking deregulation, and the corrupt establishment neoliberal Democrats helped. You're correct on that. That's what I'm talking about. And remember, it was Clinton who passed Glass-Steagall. Rene Perpetua. Hillary ruined our chances to have Bernie Sanders with her bad behavior. Let's not relitigate that again. I want to as well. Trust me, I really want to as well. But we shouldn't. Angela G. McDowell Reed, my problem is trying to talk to my relatives about this. I'm quickly shunned and expected to answer all their questions quickly as to why I am saying what I'm saying. If I don't know what I'm talking about, and they don't listen to anything from that point on. It has made me reevaluate all my relationships. Don't reevaluate your relationships at all. Let me tell you how to talk to them, okay? Don't talk politics and don't talk policy. What you do is this. They are going to complain about something. They're going to complain about the healthcare, their healthcare cost in October. What you do is lay a seed. Tell them their healthcare bill is going to skyrocket in October because of what Trump did with the tax cut scam. And don't even call it a tax cut scam. Just say, hey, you know, what he did is he reduced the advertising for the Affordable Care Act, which means less people got in, and he cut the employee mandate, which means a whole lot of people are going to be scabs. A whole lot of people are going to be moochers because, you know, conservatives don't like moochers. And what Trump did was created the ability to, he allowed the creation of a lot of moochers. People who say, well, I won't make the bet I'm not going to get sick this year, so I'm not going to buy an insurance, and I won't pay a penalty because Trump said I won't pay a penalty. So therefore, I'm not going to buy insurance. So you tell your relatives, hey, you know, man, Trump made a lot of people into moochers, and guess what's going to happen because of that? The insurance that you have, mom and dad, is going to go skyrocketed because there's going to be a lot of freeloaders. Watch what's going to happen in November. You don't want to talk politics necessarily in the form that tell them they need to change. You let them want to change because they realize that it's these policies that are affecting these problems. And that is how I talk to my Republican folks at Starbucks, and some of them that are listening right now, is that I'm not trying to tell them how wrong they are. I'm trying to show them the things that would be different if policies were different. And the only way to get those other policies different is to vote for this particular type of person. No two ways about it. Okay, continuing with my reading here. Let's see. And again, I don't understand how. Let's see. CSEC. Michael, that is true because of Democratic Party policies. The CRA, Fannie Mae, and MAC, and low interest rates from Central Fed push people into real estate. I think you better look up your data again. That was when the crash occurred. Everybody thought capitalism as we knew it was going to end, and it should have. Obama and the Democrats should have ended capitalism as we know it from these bankers, meaning take over the banks. At that point should have been nationalized. We didn't do that. And because we didn't do that, the same shenanigans that occurred back in before 2008 is occurring again today, and the same loosening of the laws that occurred back then is occurring now again. And these low interest rates that we better try to get up sooner than later because of the crash that is ultimately coming will be a detriment. Okay, let's continue. Michael, I do not understand what you mean by that. Yeah, let's see. Joyce Van Dussip, Democrats or Republicans don't want to give up power by allowing third parties. That is true. I believe in several parties, not just third parties, but 10 parties. Yes, I agree. However, people start to see that the diversity is important. Maybe it become a groundswell. We've been waiting for that Green Party or these other party groundswells for a long time, and it is yet to happen. Egberto Willis, I wish you would have nationalized the bank. That might have prevented the next boom and bust cycle. Absolutely so. It would have prevented the next boom because, again, nationalization of the bank would have prevented a lot. It looks like we have a call that we can get in real quickly before we have to end the show. Okay, 578, you're on. Talk to me.
This is Mike Cisak.
Mike Cisak, man, I see a lot of what you write to all the people that follow me, including yourself. So I'm happy to hear from you, my brother. Talk to me.
I love your passion. I really do.
I appreciate that, sir.
It's so few that. Yeah. So I mean, and there's a bunch of different things. I mean, my thing, I really kind of want to understand people. That's why I try and put different things back and forth to them, and I just get called names and stuff. So it's rough.
Let me ask you this: I've answered you a few times. Have I ever called you a name?
No.
Thank you. Okay, proceed.
No, and you're good at that. You're and there have been few heated times we debated, but I at least you're fair about that as far as, hey, this is what I believe. It's like Bernie Sanders. I have respect for him because he believes what he believes, and he's honest about it. And most politicians they just won't be honest. And I think if a lot of people really kind of search out those honest politicians and really try and go that direction, I think a lot of people will be more happy. I mean, it's tough because a lot of people just don't want to face reality.
True.
A lot of us just don't. And things are tough as it is. But honestly, I think for a lot of people here, if they really kind of try and help people that are honest, that do want to run, I think they need to start backing them because I think they'll be a lot happier with that. And it's possible. You have to look up the way you locally run all the parties, all the way up the chain. That's where you start, because a lot of the Tea Party did that. They started researching on what they had to do to really kind of figure out how to get in, to the process. Because most of them were just trying to live their lives, and that's pretty much it. So I think for a lot of people here, I think what they ought to do is look up your local party process, see what you need to do, and there's ways that you can gather people together and find people that actually do want to run. And once you can solidify around that particular person, you can get the popular vote basically a lot of times early on and get into that process and get them elected over what the typical, over and over,
right. Let me tell you,
person ends up being in there.
Hey, Mike,
so,
I'm running out of time, but let me just tell you something. I want to say that I'm thankful for you to call, and because I know you're on the other side of the divide, and you're always very, very active. In fact, you came back with a few things that I had to kind of little slap you around yesterday on the on the page. But I really enjoy that you make people think, when they're there. So what I like about this is, and what I want people to see with us talking here, is that whether you agree with me or not, and I like the commentary that you make. First of all, let me tell you, you don't sound anything like I thought you would have sounded. I thought you were going to come on here and be a ranting, raving kind of a guy. I'll be honest with you. And but it is great that you called in, and I want you to keep calling and keep listening. And since you have a conservative base, I imagine as a conservative in your Facebook feed, I need you to go ahead and share these things in your platform, because what I want to do is I don't want to be just talking to the choir. I want to even have time for you to listen and be open in your mind. I mean, my mind is always open. If you tell me something that I can calculate that makes sense based on what you believe, I will come on air and make that change. I don't have a problem. All I want is what's good, brother. But the other thing that I want to tell you is I need conservatives like you doing their job as well. And what I mean by doing their job as well is I mean going out there and being a part of the fold and spreading our message. I talk about your stuff. You need to talk about our stuff in your domain. All right, brother?
Yeah. Thank you.
But look, it was a pleasure speaking to you, and I call in a little earlier next time. Give you a lot more time, but I have to close out the show right now, man. Okay?
Yeah.
You have a wonderful day, Senor Cisac.
Right.
Great talking to you.
You too.
Now, folks, we are at the end of the show. As you know, this is the time that I make my last pitch. This is Progressive Radio, and as you can see, we speak to everybody. That is our goal. We want to make sure and have a conversation. We want to make sure that what we're going to be doing is really changing the world. There's no pleasure in just knocking on somebody. That's not what we want to do. We honestly want to make a change. And a change means not just talking to a whole bunch of liberals and progressives like me. It means talking to the Mike Cisac. Mike Cisac, I'm pretty darn sure, is a good guy. I mean, even though he came back with me and gave me some statistics on race and all of that I think he was confused about, but he's a good guy. And most people are great people. And if we first go under that tenet, think about this. When you sit down in a Starbucks or you sit down somewhere else and you just watch somebody interacting with somebody else, you see they're basically having fun, they're nice, they're talking nicely or whatever. But when the interaction comes with you or whatever, with you or you know, the first thing that happens is you get a wall or a guard that gets built up. And that wall and that guard have a tendency to stop the conversation right there, to stop the interaction or to stop the commonality that you have as humans because of the ideologies that folks would infer that you have. However, if you consider one's ideology, their beliefs, their political sect or whatever, as just another attribute of that human being, you don't not talk to somebody because they're fat. You don't not talk to somebody because their hair is black. You don't not talk to somebody because of all these other issues. Why not try to program yourselves that all these things that make up one human being, their ideology, their sect, their religion, their sexual orientation is just one attribute of that person. And that you can either support not or whatever that attribute, but talk to the human being. And whenever we get there in our minds, and that's what it takes, and that's how I communicate, that's why I try to do. Whenever we can get that in the mind, whenever we can work that out in the mind, communication occurs. And what people are going to immediately find out, they have a hell of a lot more in common than they don't. And what they'll also realize is what they have in common, if they work towards, they'll have unity. Folks, please support Progressive Radio. Please support independent media. Please support Politics Done Right. If you believe these things that I'm talking about, if you know these things that I'm talking about are right, go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright and give Politics Done Right a coffee. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright.com. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you have a most wonderful rest of the day.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.